Hi, I'm Sue from Parkies and Me, my journey with Parkinson's. So today I thought I'd do something different. We have a very good service called MS Parkinson's Canterbury that supports a number of people like myself in Christchurch and in the wider area as well. And Linda agreed to be interviewed by me to talk about the services that they have. So it would be good, Linda, if we could have a little bit of a picture of who you are. And so what other roles did you have prior to coming to the society?
Oh, kia ora, Sue, and kia ora koutou to everybody out there. I'm a registered social worker, so I came to this role because they were looking for someone who was a registered professional and into a new role, which is a health and wellbeing advisor role. Previously, MS and Parkinson's has had quite a clinical focus, and we've employed nurses and physiotherapists. And our current staff, although all of us do have a background that is relatable, I'm the only one out of the three of us currently who has a practicing certificate. I was drawn to the role because I have a personal connection with Parkinson's. My mother-in-law has Parkinson's. And also because it was an organisation kind of going through a time of change, and the new...
So you were saying you have a personal connection to Parkinson's?
Yes, I have a personal connection to Parkinson's, as my mother-in-law got Parkinson's. She is she's going to be turning 88 in April, and she's had Parkinson's for 22 years. That's when she was diagnosed. And I often use her as a bit of a good news story for people when they first get diagnosed, because she's been quite lucky and she has a milder version of Parkinson's. So she lives alone and she is managing independently. But, it's still tough. Things can be tough for her at times, but we're there and we're supporting her as we can.
And it's good to hear a story like that of somebody having Parkinson's for 22 years and getting to a good age of 88. And I think, sometimes when the diagnosis is delivered, that people can go, oh my God, how's this going to affect me? How long have I got left, sort of thing. And, often people flip straight to the image of that person with this shuffling gait and think, gosh, when is that going to happen for me? But everybody's journey is very, very different.
Yes, it is. And I think that is one of the many difficult things about living with Parkinson's, is not being able to know what your future is going to look like. And it's a common thing that people, when they're newly diagnosed, they want to see the map. They want to know what my pathway going to be. And no one is able to tell them that, not even the neurologist. We just have to wait and see how it reveals itself over time. And so it is a big part of my role is reassuring people that what maybe their worst fears might not come true, and that they do have time and they've got the opportunity to live well. And that's our focus. Our main focus as an organisation is to help people live well with their condition in the community. So that's what we're aiming to do.
And that's the same with any condition, isn't it? Even with life and health in general and aging, we need to give ourselves the best opportunity to be the best that we can, and have an increased awareness perhaps as we age that maybe those extra cream cakes and fish and chips are not the best idea if we want to be healthy for longer.
Yeah, there's a lot of research going into Parkinson's because there hasn't been a cure. And a cure is, while it's always kind of just on the horizon, we can't really see it yet. And so a lot of research is now switching to focus more on what is it that we can do to minimize the impact of it. And as you say, our gut health has now developed into the next focus of their attention. So research is going into looking at the gut microbiome and how does how we live and what we eat influence the onset of Parkinson's. And so we're starting to see information coming through about that a lot more now.
And even if you don't know much about the gut biome and all that sort of thing, I know myself, if I eat healthy, if I have a healthy meal, I feel quite good afterwards. if I don't have a healthy meal, it doesn't make you feel good.
Yeah. And I don't think there's no particular diet that's recommended for Parkinson's or for delaying the onset of symptoms of Parkinson's. But I think there are lots of different diets talked about out there. There's lots that's being researched around the diets, around healthy living. But generally, we tend to end up coming right back to the Mediterranean diet being one of the most healthiest diets across everything, because it is so measured, I think, because it just talks about moderation of everything, and it's about eating fresh and thinking healthy. And I think it's the balance of that particular diet that really keeps it at the top for these sort of conditions and general health and well-being for all people.
So in your role, would you discuss nutrition and diet and those sort of things with people?
We go over quite an extensive list, sort of balance between ourselves as health and wellbeing advisors and our colleague, Amin, who is an exercise physiologist, and he has a special interest in nutrition. So he talks about it quite a lot when he sees people, especially because he's looking at their physicality, how they're doing. And if how they're doing really means that they probably need to look at their diet and improve their condition. He goes into it in quite a lot of detail. Some of our focus around diet also situates in the symptoms of Parkinson's, and one of those being the very, the topic no one really wants to talk about, but that we end up having to talk about, which is constipation. So it is a major, it's one of the first signs that you have Parkinson's, is often people experience ongoing constipation, and it just continues to be a problem all the way through the progression of the disease. It is really mean, and unfortunately people who don't really eat high fiber diets might need to reconsider those things, because the constipation does become a really big health problem for lots of reasons.
And I know for myself, I had recently had a back operation, and the significant medications that I had, particularly morphine, really had an impact on my bowel health. And, if you're already sore from an operation on your back, you certainly don't need constipation on top of that. That's the nasty cherry on the top.
Absolutely.
So what would you say would be the primary role of MS and Parkinson's?
I think our vision as an organisation is to support people to live well in the community. And so when we say that, that means that we want to enable people to have their condition doesn't take over their lives. Their condition is part of their lives, and it might be a big part of their lives, but it is something that they continue to go about their day-to-day lives, living in their homes, but adding in things that are going to improve their outcomes. And that might be physical exercise. It might be connecting with other people. We know that all the research actually shows that connecting with others has such good therapeutic outcomes for people with their health and even physical health, emotional and well-being type things like that, that it is incredibly important. For some people who aren't say, one of the ways that we help people improve their health is to connect them in with our community. To do that, they might be interested to join one of our peer support groups. We have 16 to 17 peer support groups operating every month. And some of those, a small number of those are based at Braintree. Others of them happen out in the community, either in venues or in cafes or other places. All of our peer support groups are facilitated by volunteers who are people with Parkinson's. And we're very grateful for that, because we are an extremely lean operation as an organisation, and we just don't have the capacity to cover that sort of work. But also, I think it's really important for people to talk to others who actually have the condition, not just someone who's employed to do that job.
And I have to say I've experienced the peer support groups myself. And there's one that my husband and I go to, and he's not a great group person, but I interviewed him recently for this podcast, and he said that the peer support group is absolutely invaluable, and I really enjoyed hearing him say that because he is a bit of a quiet chap who doesn't always tell you stuff, and there was kind of a moment where I went, gosh, that's great. He really gets something out of it.
Yeah, that's really important. Thank you for mentioning that, actually, Sue, because most of our peer support groups are not just for the person with Parkinson's, they're also for their partner, family member, whoever it is that is one of their support crew. And we know that while, in your example, you're the person with Parkinson's, you and your husband lives with Parkinson's also, right? So it does affect his life, his health and well-being. And as the condition progresses over the years, we find that often that partner is the person who begins to carry a lot of the load. And it just naturally happens. And sometimes it's a really difficult and unpredictable space to be in, and might really upend a relationship that had a totally different way of working. And so, that's why a lot of times I'm actually working with the partners rather than the person with Parkinson's to help them develop coping skills, to reach out to services that they might need a referral to get an extra help to come into the home, to help with housework or getting a break, having an opportunity to leave the home or leave their person safely with someone while they go to the shop or go and have coffee with a friend. All of those things become really important.
Actually, another thing I'd like to say, my husband started coming with me very early on in the piece, and I'm really glad that he did. And because we've been coming to it for quite some time now, we've built a rapport and a trust with the people in the group. And I think sometimes with support groups, sometimes you need to join before you think you need it, because it's about developing that trust in those relationships and feeling comfortable in that space. And after a while, my husband might say to somebody, one of the other husbands, hey, can we just have a little bit of a talk about something, and feel comfortable doing that. Whereas if a person joins a peer support group when things are really getting turned upside down and stressful, and they don't know this group of people, it will certainly be harder for them to pipe up and say, the reason I'm here is because of this is what's happening in my life. So the earlier the better, as far as I'm concerned.
That's a really good point. I completely agree with you. I think it is everybody's so different though, and we try to share the groups as something for people to take on when they feel up to it. And for some people, it's just too confronting at the very beginning. But you're right. There's a place where leaving it too long is leaving it too long as well, and tuning up for solutions to really big problems puts a lot of pressure on people, and also maybe it's just a bit late. So good point there. I reckon that's really sage advice. So,
and the thing is, my husband is he's kind of the introvert in the relationship. And he's very much somebody who says, I don't need to talk to people. I have my own ways of de-stressing. And when I interviewed him for this podcast, I was quite surprised, in fact, very surprised, when he said how important he felt that support group was. And I thought, gosh, you've been sitting there quietly just absorbing this and thinking about it. And it's really refreshing and nice to hear him say it has value, because sometimes when you're the person with the condition, you can feel like, oh, do they really want to come? They've had a busy day at work. Maybe I could just go by myself. But I think there is such value in being able to do these things together, because you are very much in this life of Parkinson's together.
Absolutely. And all the groups run a little bit differently. So your group operates like in a public space, but sitting together at a table. Some of the other groups have a quiet room, and the people with Parkinson's do exercises and practice their speech and their balance and their communication. They are we use a process where the facilitator takes them through a bit of a program, and then at the same time, either that person's wife or one of the staff members, runs a support group for the partners in another room at the same time. So they have an opportunity to be separate and to share the challenges they have about living with Parkinson's as well. So the groups are all different, and hopefully there's something there for everyone.
I've noticed when we first started coming to the group that my husband sat right next to me. And then I noticed when we went to the last group, in the last few groups, he's actually gravitated to another area. You know, he sat between other people. And I'm not far away, but I'm not directly next to him. So to me, that indicates that he's comfortable with that group, that he doesn't have to have the comfort of his wife that he knows close at hand. So, yeah, that's quite
really
refreshing.
positive. And hopefully he gets, that sounds like he gets really good support from the other partners in the group as well. And just hearing what's happening for him that he's not alone, I think, is a really key experience for people to understand they're not alone, because you can feel really isolated when you're living with a condition like this.
Absolutely. We've talked a little bit about your role. What other supports does the organisation
So
provide?
we also have an exercise physiologist who offers a free 1 hour assessment around people's physical capabilities, and he does a very thorough head to toe sort of testing process of muscle control, weakness, balance, all of those sort of things. We've got we take quite a thorough medical history just to understand what other conditions people might also be living with. And then he designs an individualized program for each person, which they can do at home. Some people choose to do the program they get given at a gym. They might already go to a gym that's close to where they live, and so he can create that for them. Or he will identify which classes out of the ones we actually offer at Braintree Wellness Centre, which is where we're based, that they could attend. And that doesn't suit everybody, because a lot of people work and it's only open office hours, unfortunately, at the moment. But there is plans for us to start a gym group for people who are younger onset. So that will hopefully come at some point this year, and that will likely be an after-hour space or a weekend space that opens up. But yeah, so that thing.
So when you talk of younger people, what sort of age range would you envisage?
As the average onset of Parkinson's is 69, we tend to think of people who are sort of younger as being, I think it's anybody under 65, but that's just because I'm getting through. If anybody younger than me. But we also are working a lot with people who have young onset Parkinson's, so people in their 30s and 40s. And so that's got quite a different trajectory for those people to start life with Parkinson's so early. So that impacts them quite differently. And yeah, so this is probably people who aren't able to come to Braintree at the 9 to 5 slot, because they are living their lives, they are at work, they are doing other things. So that's kind of how it is. I hope we let people self-identify if they're younger or not.
Yeah, but by the sounds of it, I've got one more year of being younger and then I hit 65.
Yes, maybe so.
So you mentioned Braintree. So can you tell us where Braintree is situated and what the whole Braintree facility is all about?
Sure. Braintree Wellness Centre, I try to get its name right, is a wonderful setting. It's a facility that's been created to offer a sort of a home base or a centre point for people living with neurological conditions. There are some core tenants in the facility, and that is ourselves as MS and Parkinson's Canterbury and Dementia Canterbury as well. But in the building, there's also Aspire Canterbury, who provide lots of community information services. They've got a shop there where they sell disability aids and other sorts of things that you might need. And also there's the Southern Music Therapy group are also based there. The Aphasia New Zealand community group there for the Canterbury-based staff have a hot desk there. Disabled Persons Assembly also have a space there. There's quite a few other groups that come and go. A lot of people that use like the motor neurone disease will come once a month to run their hui. There's a lot of people in groups who come in and out of the building, but those of us who are tenants, all of us offer support groups, education workshops, training, and for us at MS and Parkinson's, as well as those things, we have the gym and we have our exercise room, where we run set organised exercise classes out of, and we have about 16 or 17 of those running a week. So it's a very busy and active space, and usually there's something for everybody in there.
Yeah, it sounds really great. So, how do they find you? What is the actual address? Give us a little bit of an idea of how to find you.
Braintree Wellness Centre is at 70 Langdons Road in Papanui. So it's pretty much sandwiched between Northlink Mall and the Northlink, the new Northlink Centre. You have to drive in past there's a childcare centre on the one corner, and a photocopying place on another corner, and you tune in to there and keep going straight as that road takes you straight to the back section. We're working on signage because the Braintree signs are there, but it's quite confusing. There's a lot of different businesses working out of the same building. So there's quite a bit of, I'd say, sign pollution occurring. We're all trying to get help behind us. And people do regularly get lost the first time they come, but we've got lots of good parking, unless you come when there's a big event on, and then it's a little bit difficult to find a park. But we're right beside the new cancer centre. There's a big cancer wellbeing centre there for people who are coming from out of town for treatment, and they're right beside us. And so if you just follow the orange signs, you'll find it.
Well, it sounds like there's plenty of very useful organisations associated with Braintree, and well worth a visit. And it's also well worth a visit for the lovely cafe, I have to say.
I think the cafe was like, perhaps when they were designing it, might not have been the first thing, but it is something that brings people in, and it's a really lovely setting. It's a beautiful place. The actual building is lovely with gorgeous views out to the wetlands that the local Rotary group have been so incredibly generous with spending time on generating that wetland. And I know from my personal desk, I can look up and watch the pukekos playing out there. It's really gorgeous. The cafe is great. It's got set hours. It usually closes about 2:30, but it is open from around 8:30 or 9. So it runs Monday to Friday. And we have people come in from the Cancer Society building, workers who work nearby come in as well for coffee and kai. So it is a lovely place. But for us, we love that a lot of the exercise classes, the people who attend those like to stay behind after their class and socialise and catch up with each other. So it's got, our classes aren't just for exercise, they also have that social connection happening for a lot of them as well.
Absolutely. And I was going to the classes at Braintree, but unfortunately with my back issue, I'd had to call a halt. But I fully intend to come back. But I was going to comment on the importance of the coffee afterwards, because I think sometimes people underestimate how important those social connections are. If you just come to a class and then do your thing and don't talk to anybody and then go back home again, I think you're missing an opportunity to get alongside people and have that support and develop that rapport. So you've got friendly faces that you can come to the class with. You'll enjoy those classes more, and you'll get something out of the coffee afterwards as well, just making those connections. Because with MS and Parkinson's, with both of them, it can be a lonely life. And that may be the only coffee and chat that a person might get in that week. So I really encourage people to come along.
Yeah, I think you're right. That again, it's that social connection, which is breaking down the isolation of living a life with an ongoing health condition or a disability. I think sometimes when people get the diagnosis of Parkinson's, they don't always understand if they're moving into a place of disability and from a place of ability. And that can be a bit of a shock that their bodies start not working the way that they used to. So we're really doing our best. The other thing that happens in Braintree, as I think I've already mentioned, is education workshops and groups. We as an organisation get in. We have Age Concern coming in to talk about safer driving. They do life without a car workshops for us as well. We have continence workshops. We have had laughter yoga. We invite guest speakers to come in and specifically talk about MS and Parkinson's because they're our two main concerns, and just provide like up-to-date research. In a few weeks, we've got a dietitian coming to talk about diet and nutrition and living with Parkinson's and MS. We've got, we try to always respond to what people say they want to learn about as well. And I think that's really important. A lot of people with Parkinson's are very interested in research and in finding out like what's caused this, how did I get here, how can I live more, better, all of those sort of things. And we want to be able to provide people that support.
Well, it sounds like there's quite a lot on offer from you guys, and well worth checking out. One of the things that I notice with my Parkinson's is my speech is getting a little less certain sometimes, a bit stuttery. But I just wanted to do these podcasts to show that even with Parkinson's and even with the odd glitch in my speech, somebody like me can still do these things and hopefully have some value in doing so.
Well, because speech is something that is often impacted by Parkinson's, that's part of what our role as health and wellbeing advisors is we do a lot of referring out to support services. So not just your housework and personal cares, but also onto other professionals. So we do referrals through to speech and language therapy, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, all into the medical system. But we do also we've tried to build a list of contacts of people that provide those services privately as well, because sometimes the wait for those services are quite long at the moment. And also counsellors, psychologists, the people we think that are going to be able to support you staying well and looking after yourselves as you continue on this journey. So we have a lot of collation of resources and trying to help people navigate the health system. That's a really key part of what we do.
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear that you can refer on to counsellors. My own personal situation, I had to retire a couple of years early last year because of some of the impact of my various health issues and Parkinson's on top of it all. And it was a hard decision to make, but it's been the best decision I could have made also. But it can be a really difficult time if somebody has to give up work, because a lot of people sort of identify as the person who does a certain job. Like for myself, I was a social worker, and it's part of your identity. And for some people, losing that identity is quite a difficult thing, because who are they without that persona? So, I mean, I'm fortunate I was ready to retire. But I know for some people, when they feel that they're kind of forced into it, it's a huge culture shock. It's a huge identity shock, and one that needs to be supported.
Absolutely. I so agree. I think everybody needs support of some type to adjust to their health situation. And that adjustment takes different time in different forms for everybody. And we need to that's what we're trying to do, is be supportive and offer you what it is that's going to work for you, what support you need. And some people do, that's literally what they turn up with. What's on top for them is, how do I manage this? What do I do? How do I speak to my family? Like really practical things. How do I just start with living this new way, this new life that I have?
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes people may not be ready to talk about those sort of deep feelings, but we think, oh, well, I'll try out the exercise class, see how I go. And then they find themselves talking to other people, and it eases them into the idea of sharing and being supported, where, they just thought they would come for some exercise.
Absolutely.
You coax them in and then offer some more services. I think it's a bit like my husband and I going to that support group. Do need to get comfortable in an environment, especially when you've got a health condition, a disability where maybe you lack some confidence, have some concerns about how people might view you, etc. It's nice to be in an environment where you don't have to worry if you've got a bit of a shaky hand or whatever is going on here with your Parkinson's or your MS, that it's a supportive environment where people understand and you don't have to sort of try really hard to suppress things. You can just be who you are at the time, and it's really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're as an organisation, we're very small. Like, there's only 7 staff, and the 4 of us are the ones who have the majority of the client contact. So we're the ones whose job it is to provide services that support people with Parkinson's. And we support, as an organisation, over 1,400 people in Canterbury. We run,
a lot.
and about 850 of those have Parkinson's. And the number is just increasing all the time, unfortunately. We also we run clinics up to Kaikoura and out to Darfield and then down to Ashburton. We're trying to maintain those clinics on a regular basis so that people don't have as far to come to see us. We moved from a model of doing a lot of home visits to this model, and I think it's certainly much more feasible for us because there's so few of us. So apart from the 4 of us, there's our admin person, our manager, and our fundraising and marketing person, Lena. And so we do a lot with not much. And in terms of resource, even as just about all of our staff are part-time. But there's a whole bunch of people with great ideas who really want to make a difference for people with MS and Parkinson's. And that's what we're trying to aim at.
And it sounds like you're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you, Sue. I'm glad you've been enjoying some of the services that are there for you.
Yeah, I mean, as with anybody as they age, other conditions have overtaken my Parkinson's. And my Parkinson's actually is being very, very well behaved, I have to say. And it's been frustrating for me. I've been using a walker for several months, and I always take great pains, I don't know why, to say it's not my Parkinson's, it's not Parkinson's fault. It's my back issue, and it's something that I intend to shed very soon because, I want to get back to being more able, and again, physiotherapy and exercise is the key to wellness in general for Parkinson's, but certainly in recovery and rehabilitation, you just have to put in the hard yards. Give yourself the best chance.
And some of that hard yards involves using those tools and aids, even though they feel like they shouldn't play or don't belong. We know that, if you use the walker, you are going to be more mobile, therefore you are mobile, and that's a great thing. So, yeah, all of those things are important.
Well, to tell it to my husband, he says he's sick and tired of getting that thing in and out of the car wherever we go. He'll be glad to see the back of it, I think.
Yeah.
So, Linda, is there anything more you'd like to share before we sort of wrap things up?
No, I think that's pretty much it. So I think I just really want to reinforce for the people who are following this podcast, whether you have had Parkinson's for a long time or you're just newly diagnosed, that we really exist. MS and Parkinson's Canterbury has been in existence for 60 years, and we exist because we're a
Wow.
community-based organisation that is here for you. We are outside of the system. We get very limited amount of funding from government contracts. The majority of our funding comes from fundraising ourselves. And if you ever want to contribute to that, we always look for volunteers once a year for our annual appeal, or just anything, any skills that you might have. We'd love to hear from you. And yeah, we just really appreciate, we know the organisation is only ever going to be as rich and strong as those of you who attend our wonderful classes or come to our peer support groups and who give back as much as you receive. So yeah, big ups to you.
Thank you. So I'll just wrap it up now. Thank you, Linda, for the great interview, and I'm sure people have learned a lot about what you do and why you do it, and it's a really valuable service for those of us in Canterbury. So this has been Sue for Parkies and Me, my journey with Parkinson's. Kia kaha, be strong, be brave, be you.